Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sandy Spring Museum February program. And we have a very interesting program for you this afternoon, and I think you will enjoy it very much. But before we get started on the program, I'll introduce myself and my co-president. I'm Kathy Rominsky. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Sandy Spring Museum Garden Club. Marge Combs is the other co-president, and she's waving. And we'd like you to be aware of the upcoming programs and events for this spring that the Garden Club has planned. The next program will be Sunday, April 10th from 2 to 4, and will be, as far as we know right now, at the museum. And this is going to be a fun program because you're actually going to learn something and then make something. It's going to be Tussie Mussies, and it's a Victorian, started in the Victorian era, and they're little bouquets, as you can see in the pictures. And by what the flowers that you put into them have a special message. So you'll learn all about that. Let's go to the next slide. Again, it's not moving. There we go. Okay, Saturday, April 30th at 9 a.m., we're going to have a courtyard planting and mulching. And it's the one of the things that the Garden Club does is to beautify the courtyard for the museum. That's one of our main objectives of the Garden Club. Oh. So if you want to join us on Saturday, April 30th at 9, you can help Mary Dominique. She's the person that's really in charge of the courtyard. And there you see a picture of her and one of our other members preparing plants. Okay. Whoops. Let me go back. Let me see. I skipped too much. How to get back? Hopefully. Whoops. Okay. There we go. The garden tour we do it biannually. So every 2 years. But because of COVID, we didn't do it for 2 years. So this is the third year, and it's back. And it'll be Saturday, May 21st, so you can save the date, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And what you will do is you will get little tickets, and you will be able to go to the various gardens. And right now we have 5 gardens on the tour. And they're located in and around Montgomery County, and some of them are going up into Howard County, but it's that area there. And it's just always, if you're interested in gardens, it's just always so fascinating what people do in their gardens. So kind of save the date for that. And then finally, we have our wonderful Strawberry Festival, and that's, of course, a museum activity or a museum event, but we have a plant booth there, and we have wonderful plants. We have some vegetables, herbs, annuals, perennials, and these beautiful hanging baskets that we get from a wholesale nursery that has been very generous to us. So I have there the website for the Garden Club, and then I also have an email address. So if you want to volunteer for the courtyard gardens, or if you want to volunteer for any of these other activities, please use the email address, and I will get back with you. And it'll kind of give us, especially for the courtyard cleanup, it'll give us an idea of how many people are going to be there. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ellen Feeney, and she is one of the program coordinators, and she's going to tell us a little bit about our speaker today. So, Ellen?
Hi, thank you. I'm really excited to welcome Sue Muller here today. I'm going to tell you about her in a minute, but I just want to do some housekeeping. So she's going to talk, and if you have questions occur to you during her talk, just put your questions in the chat, and we'll stop about 20 minutes in or after she finishes each section of her talk, and we'll address the questions. And then I also want to just remind people to keep their Zoom on mute when the speaker's talking. So we're really excited to have Sue Muller here. She's a very enthusiastic naturalist. She has a lifelong passion for birds and all environmental conservation. She earned her degree from West Virginia University in wildlife management, and she spent her 40-year career working in natural resources. She spent 35 years with the Howard County Department of Parks and Recreation. She was a county coordinator for the Maryland Amphibian Reptile Atlas, for the Pennsylvania Amphibian Reptile Survey, and she's currently a contributing editor to Maryland Biodiversity Project and a co-coordinator of the Maryland Breeding Bird Atlas 3 program, which she is going to tell us all about. She's also going to share some tips and simple ways to help us make our backyards hospitable for birds and for nesting. So I'd like to welcome Sue, and go ahead, Sue.
Thank you, Ellen. Colin, so I'm just going to hit share screen. Does that other PowerPoint have to be off? I still see the Strawberry Festival.
So Kathy, if you hit the same button that you hit before to share screen, that'll take that down and Sue can put hers up.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No
I
worries.
took
No
it away.
worries.
Okay.
No worries.
I took it away from my screen, but I thought it was okay. Is that okay now?
I'm still seeing it. Is everybody else?
You should, how about just try, Sue, sharing your screen?
Share screen? Okay.
See if that just does it.
Share. Do you see the eagle?
Not yet.
Uh-oh, I do. So it says I'm sharing my screen.
They're both, so we can choose.
Yeah, you can choose. I'm seeing the eagles now.
Okay.
I think, Kathy, if you hit stop share, it'll take away your.
Oh, stop video?
No.
It's,
Share.
yeah,
It's in
so
red.
Should I just, what do I do with this little thing? Here. New share? Hit that?
no, it should be the same button as share screen. There should be, it should say, it should be right next
It
to
says resume square. Okay. Now, can I just close my PowerPoint? Would that help? Should I just close it?
They're having trouble.
Here, hang on a sec.
Do you still see it? Because I just closed it.
All right, Sue, try again now.
I have it up on my screen.
Right. So if do you still see the PowerPoint?
Here, Sue, if you, why don't you try disconnect, unshare your screen for a second, and then try again.
Okay.
For everyone else who has the option to see one screen or the other, go ahead and click on Sue's screen, which should have the, you said eagle on the front?
Yeah, okay, I'm now on the screen where I can stop share if you want me to, but does everybody see the eagle or is that a problem? No, I see people shaking their head no.
No, don't
Okay,
see
so
it.
Colin, you want me to stop sharing and start
Yes,
again?
and Kathy, if are people still seeing Kathy's screen too?
No.
No? Okay, so then it should just be, so Sue, go ahead and stop share and then try it again. There we go.
There we go.
Ah, amen. Finally. For me as a speaker, that's always such a stressful moment. You know, does the PowerPoint come up or does it not come up? And, you know, I'm always dependent on, you know, Colin in your case to help me there. So very good. Thank you. So welcome everybody on Super Bowl Sunday. I guess that makes me your pre-Super Bowl entertainment for the afternoon. And just delighted to be here talking about my favorite subject, birds. And thank you for that introduction, Ellen. You really think you covered it all. And I am recently retired. Maybe we didn't mention that, but basically devoting the next several years to bird conservation. So it's in my interest to be here talking to you about it. And I'm going to go back several years here, see if anybody can recognize. It didn't advance. Any thoughts, Colin, as to why it's not advancing?
Are you just clicking to make the slides go forward?
Yeah.
Try pressing the right arrow key. See if that.
I've done that.
Okay.
I'll do it again.
Here, hit the escape button.
Yeah, that didn't do anything either. So should I do stop share and bring it up again?
Sure. Go ahead and try that.
Okay. Ah, there we go. Y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank goodness. So anyway, back in 1971, who can remember this? There was a song and the chorus was, "I know he'd be a poor man if he never saw an eagle fly." Now, if we were in an audience, you know, I'd be looking for hands and who could name that song first, I'd probably have a prize for you. But for those of you who remember the 1970s, that was a John Denver song, "Rocky Mountain High." And I want you to think about little Susie, red-haired Susie up in New York, just dreaming of seeing eagles. And of course, it was an endangered bird, and there probably weren't any in New York. And I just became, I want to see an eagle because I'm going to be a better person if I see one. And then on top of that, the New York State bird, I guess you can all see the picture and probably know what that is because we have them here, but it's the eastern bluebird. And that was also a bird I could not see. It was our state bird and I couldn't understand, why can't I see eagles? Why can't I see bluebirds? And it was those kind of moments that actually channeled my career path into wildlife management, because I was going to grow up, save the planet, save the birds, save wildlife. And as Ellen said in my introduction, of course, I graduated from West Virginia University with a degree in wildlife management and then spent my career working on natural resources. So with that said, let's take a look now at the status review of this bird, our national symbol, the endangered bald eagle. Most people probably associate it being listed as endangered in 1972 when Congress passed the Endangered Species Act, 73. But it actually was listed in 1963, 10 years prior, before this act was passed. So with the passage of the Endangered Species Act, it enabled a lot of protections to this bird that I guess today it still has them, even though it's off the endangered species list. It was delisted in 2007 because we also have another act called the Eagle Protection Act, which also allows them to have certain protections. But you know, for decades, this was an endangered bird and nobody could see them. And how cool in our lifetimes to see this bird come back. And in Maryland, we have what's called the RTE list, which is the Rare, Threatened, Endangered list. And that was removed in 2010 from that list, the bald eagle. So that was just 12 years ago, folks. And you're going to see just how many eagles we have everywhere in a few slides. Just amazing for me in my career and my lifetime to see this bird from a time when I dreamed of seeing it to a time where I can go out any day I want, really, and see an eagle. They're that common. So then and now, kind of an odd title, but back in 1977, the Maryland DNR, which is the Department of Natural Resources, they had determined that there were 44 nesting pairs in the whole state of Maryland. And my guess is most of them would have been around the Chesapeake Bay, if not all of them. As to whether they were successful or not, who knows? Because I think everyone knows their problem was DDT, creating very thin eggshells. So basically putting a stop to reproduction for this species, because their eggshells kept cracking during incubation and stuff. So in our area here in central Maryland, we have a lot of eagles here right now because we have a lot of them that migrate here. Not all eagles will stay, of course, even though they migrate down here. You think of like the Great Lakes region, or up where I'm from in the Adirondacks, there's Lake George. Those lakes freeze often in the winter, and because this bird eats fish primarily, it needs to go to open water. And if you're an eagle and you see that big Chesapeake Bay, where are you going to go in the winter? You're going to go to Maryland, right? Delaware and Virginia. And so yeah, we have a lot of them here, but a lot of them are going to be leaving in a couple months as they start to migrate back to where they came from. And so some popular locations to see eagles, in case you just got that itch to get out there with your camera and get photographs. Probably one of the most popular places is Conowingo Dam, which is up in, I believe, Harford County. You got that big dam that creates the pool of water in front, and there's lots of fish there. So that's a very popular place for photographers to go to photograph eagles, and you can get them in all their life state, age, juveniles as well as adults. And I think there's a nest up there as well. Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge on the eastern shore. Again, there's wildlife drive. You can go around. There's several nests on the refuge, and there's always eagles there. It's actually where I saw my first bald eagle back in the 1980s when I moved here. And then I actually took my nieces there in the 1990s to see their first bald eagle. So, and then Triadelphia Reservoir, because I'm sure a lot of you are from Montgomery County that are on this presentation today. Triadelphia Reservoir is between, Montgomery and Howard County, and we definitely have eagles all around there. Probably if you sat there long enough one day, you would, see a couple eagles easily. And I'm in Columbia, speaking to you from Columbia, and we have a lot of lakes here. We have rivers, the Patapsco, the Patuxent, and the Middle Patuxent. So we have a lot of good fishing area for bald eagles. So again, they're attracted here in the wintertime. And let's see, the Maryland DC Breeding Bird Atlas. So this is what I really want to talk to you all about today. If you know what an atlas is, we can start simple here. An atlas is basically a map. And you can atlas anything. You can atlas garden plants. You can atlas trees. You can atlas the reptiles and amphibians, as Ellen mentioned, I was a coordinator for back in 2010. You can atlas football stadiums. It doesn't have to be nature. And so in this case, we're mapping the distribution of breeding birds. It's a 5-year study, and many states do breeding bird atlases, if not all of them. Right now, we currently have North Carolina and New York and Maryland all doing breeding bird atlases, and Maine just finished up, and I don't know in this current year if we have any new states joining on, but so it's a 5-year study. It takes 5 years when you think about it to try and cover every inch of the state. It really does. And some of the larger states like Texas, maybe they do them for 10 years. You know, that's a humongous state. And what's neat is most of this data is collected by volunteers, people just like you, just like me. There are some people paid. For instance, the state coordinator, Gabe Foley, he is a paid position, as should be. And we use our smartphones. Where's my smartphone? Right here. You know, I can remember just the last atlas nearly 20 years ago. We do these atlases about every 20 years. And the main thing we do is compare the breeding maps to look for changes. For instance, did we lose species? Did we gain species, etc.? And have ranges expanded? I could go on. How is climate change affecting breeding ranges, etc. So back then we did all these surveys with a clipboard in hand, pieces of paper, checklists, you name it. Now we use our cell phones. Oh my gosh, with eBird, it's an app from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. We just do our checklists right here on our cell phones, our smartphones. And I know this is not prime breeding season. You're thinking, what kind of breeding birds could we possibly be looking for? Well, actually, that is why we're talking about eagles and owls today, because they are breeding now. We only have 4 birds that are actually breeding, as in pigeons. They actually nest year-round, not just a certain portion of the year, but the eagles are actively adding sticks to their nests, and probably by the end of the month will have laid their eggs. So they're getting ready. If not, there might be a couple early nests that actually do have eagles sitting in them. And owls, we have great horned owls that definitely are sitting on eggs, and barred owls, probably not laying on eggs yet, but we're listening for them because they are in what we call breeding safe dates. We're going to talk about that in another slide. And so, as I said, yeah, great horned owls and bald eagles are the focus of my talk. And so let's keep going here. So bald eagle atlas maps. Now, at this point, I am going to stop sharing this screen to pick up a website and hope this works. We practiced this early in the week, so I want to take you to different atlas maps from previous atlases to show you just the changes I was talking about. When we look at the changes in breeding ranges, like the bald eagle, we're going to start with that one because the links don't work in the PowerPoint when shared from Zoom. So I'm going to stop sharing this. Let's hope this works, everybody. And stop share. And then I'm going to pick up my Maryland Breeding Bird Atlas right here. Okay. And then well, there it is, share screen. And we are going to pick up Colin, my, it's not there. All right, let's try this one more time. Are you all still seeing the eagle on the my PowerPoint that says bald eagle atlas maps?
Oh.
No. Okay.
No.
It's no longer on the screen.
Yep. Okay. So
if you click on the browser that you're using to pull the website up on, and then keep that open, and then click on the icon for Zoom, and then hit shared screen, it should come up as one of the options.
No, I don't think this is gonna work. Darn. Okay, well,
I don't know why the video.
let me go back just to the PowerPoint then. You're not seeing that screen right now with all the maps?
No.
No.
Okay. Oh,
You're
darn.
not sharing your screen. You've got to share
Okay,
your screen.
here's the video, but we can't see her screen. She's having a problem.
Okay.
Let me try one more time, share screen.
And then are you hitting share?
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Oh, good. Sorry, folks. Now you should see it. Do you see a list of bird names?
Yep, coming up
Yep.
clear on my end.
Excellent. So this is the Howard County Bird Club website. And keep in mind, I know some of you are in different counties that I didn't go around to all the different counties to see what, bird clubs had what on their websites, etc. But we have all of our maps from the previous breeding bird atlases on our website. So I'm going to go to Bald Eagle because this tells it all. Does everybody see the Bald Eagle maps? Yep, excellent. So you look down at the bottom, on the bottom left there, that's the outline of Howard County. If you don't recognize it, that's Howard County. And then over on the right, the three grid maps, that's also the shape of Howard County. And down at the bottom where it says no records, that was the year 1973 to 75 when we had a pilot project for the Breeding Bird Atlas before it went statewide. So you can see in that map, there were absolutely no observations of a bald eagle. Now, the first official Breeding Bird Atlas was 1983 to 1987. And look at those three O's there. Those are for observation. There were 3 bald eagles seen. Oh my gosh, 3. In a 5-year atlas, 3 bald eagles were seen. Fast forward another 20 years to 2002 to 2006. Look at all the observations. And not only were there observations, those black boxes, 6 of them, those were all confirmed nests. So this, by studying the breeding birds and comparing their maps every 20 or so years, we can see changes. And this absolutely shows us how the bird recovered. You couldn't ask for a better screen, and the bald eagle will always probably be the poster child of the Endangered Species Act. So now I'm going to go to a bird that's very familiar to everybody, and that would be the American robin. To show you, here is a bird that you look at all 3 maps, it was found in every single block in all the years of all 3 atlases. And that's because, of course, we have created the perfect habitat for all these birds by having homes and lawns and shrubs for them to build their nests in. And is this likely to change in this atlas? No, not at all. In fact, here in Howard County, I think we're down to 2 blocks left that need to confirm robin, and we'll get those this year. But 20 years from now, when we do another atlas, the only thing I can see that would change these maps would be a virus or something coming in that wipes out, maybe all birds in the thrush family, which the robins are in, along with hermit thrushes, etc. And again, these maps would show that in the future, should some disease come that would, wipe them out. So now let's look, we're going to go over to another extreme, Canada goose, and show how humans have influenced the range of this bird. You look in 1973 for the Atlas pilot, there were 2 nests, 2 blocks with nests in Howard County, 2. Then you go up to 1983 to 87, Howard County is starting to get built out with developments, and every development gets a sediment pond. We have all these big, beautiful man-made lakes. You have farmers planting cornfields and leaving some of the corn in the field for geese because maybe they like to hunt or they want to sell hunting permits to have people hunt on their property, etc. Suddenly, what used to be migratory geese, not so many migratory geese. Some of them are just staying, and they are now considered a nuisance bird. And many different agencies, how they choose to control them, whether it's oiling their eggs or they have hunts or they get dogs to bark and chase them, off the pathways or whatever. But there's a perfect example of some human influence on birds, Canada geese. So now let's go to, I only picked about a half a dozen birds to show you. I just want to instill upon you all the value of gathering this data and how your observations of birds can be very helpful in making these determinations. I was going to go next to the common raven. Everybody knows raven because of our Baltimore's football team, the Ravens, or that poem by, what was it, Edgar Allan Poe. You can see that there were no nests ever in Howard County all the way through 2006. In 2011, Howard County had its first breeding pair of ravens. It was hot news in the bird world. And now, after 2 years of our current survey, I probably did not mention that yet. It started in 2020, and we are just now starting the 3rd year of the Breeding Bird Atlas. And so we've basically got 3 years ahead of us. We have, I believe, 4 raven nests already. And the first nest I think we found was on a cell tower. We are going to talk about cell towers in a bit too, as a hot real estate place for birds. And then I mentioned when I first started how as a child in upstate New York, I could not see my state bird, the eastern bluebird. Back in the 70s, I mean, most of you probably know eastern bluebirds are cavity nesters. They nest inside tree cavities naturally. But in come people who cut down dead trees for firewood, cut down dead trees because they're ugly, introduce a couple of non-native species like starlings and house sparrows that outcompete them for the nest sites that are left. You have a decline in population. And it was in the 1970s, I want to say, that the, I want to call the North American Bluebird Society started the bluebird trails across America, and it became really cool to start having bluebird boxes in your yards. And you can see in the 70s, we still had probably maybe not quite 50% nesting confirmed for bluebird in Howard County. But you look at the next atlas and, oh my gosh, blown off the charts, almost every block. And who knows up there in the last atlas, 2002 to 2006, why those 2 blocks there did not get confirmed. I guarantee we will confirm them all in Howard County. But basically what I'm saying, again, humans caused the decline of the bird, but humans brought the bird back by providing artificial nest sites for them. And we're going to talk about that at the end when we talk about things you can do in your yard. And then 2 more birds I'm going to show you. One, these are probably the more sad story of what's going on in the bird world. The bobwhite quail, or northern bobwhite. Back in the 70s, down here in the pilot project, Howard County had a lot of farmland, which is prime habitat for quail. But as it got built out, you can see in the second Atlas 83, their breeding areas shrinking. And by the last atlas, 1 block. And we've had 2 years of surveys, not a quail has been heard, and I would be shocked if we found a quail breeding. That's a species that has been lost in Howard County as a breeder. And actually it's been lost in a lot of areas across the state. So that's a bird of concern. And another bird of concern, this is the last map I'm going to show you, and then hopefully we'll get back to the PowerPoint with ease, is the Kentucky warbler right here. So some of you have probably heard about the term forest interior dwelling birds, okay? When we develop a county out, like Howard County has gotten, we have a lot of fragmented forested areas, meaning they're very small, 10 acres here, 20 acres there. And what birds like this need, the Kentucky warbler, a contiguous forest, large areas of forest. So down here in the southern border where we have like Triadelphia Reservoir and Patuxent River State Park, there was still some activity there in the last atlas, and it looks like in the central part of the state where probably like Middle Patuxent Environmental Area is, I'm sorry, county, I said state. You know, and what's this atlas going to show? After 2 years of surveys, I believe we had one nest so far, but we're going to start focusing, you know, doing targeted surveys to try and find some of these species. So, and summarizing this part of the talk, as I said, this is what I wanted to stress upon everybody, the value of collecting data on breeding birds, and hope that it inspires all of you to help with this mission, even if it's just birds that are breeding in your yard. And so with that, I'm going to stop share. Bear with us as we do this again. Let's see, stop share. Okay. And then we go back to share screen. And we go back to the PowerPoint and share. Let's see if that works. Everybody see the eagle again? Oh, awesome. I'm a happy woman that this has worked out. So let me go down to back to the atlas maps right there, and we'll start from that current slide. Okay, so now we will move on to the next slide. And I mentioned early on somebody who mentioned she was from Rockville. As I'm talking again about why do we do these breeding bird atlases, this is called a Mississippi kite. Some of you maybe have never heard of a Mississippi kite, but this bird was nesting in Rockville this past summer in a little piece of forested area right next to a parking lot at a school. And what the significance of that is, there have never been Mississippi kites nesting in the state of Maryland ever in a breeding bird atlas. This is the first time, and we had 2 nests, this one in Rockville and one in Calvert County on private property. So again, when we talk about like climate change, how is that affecting breeding bird ranges? We are seeing some birds from the south move north. So that's just one example of that. And again, these are things we're looking at. So let's go back to bald eagles. And I wanted to mention what's called the Bald Eagle Nest Monitoring Program. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The website will be at the end, I think, where I have more information listed. This is clearly a bald eagle nest, something we look for at this time of year. You have either a dead tree or a tree obviously without leaves at this time of year, and you see this humongous nest, and boy, having the bald eagle there on the left right next to it is a good way to, yeah, that's an eagle nest. That's what we're looking for now. And the Bald Eagle Monitoring Program, basically because DNR, now that it's been removed from the endangered species list for Maryland, they don't track the eagle nest like they used to. So now there's this program by a group called the Bird Conservation Partnership, not to confuse everybody. But if anybody wants to monitor a nest, I think the next slide, there we go. That's the website, and you can look at it, read about it. They have some nests probably available for adoption, or if you yourself find a bald eagle nest and you register it, then you can become the monitor. I think they only ask you go out 3 or 4 times. As I say, I don't monitor a nest, but I'm just throwing it out there as something fun. It makes a nice family project. So now let's talk about this thing called safe dates. And when we're talking about the breeding bird atlas, as I mentioned, we use eBird on our smartphones, which comes from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Anybody can download eBird on their phones. And I imagine there's several of you out there that maybe participate in the backyard bird count and already use eBird, or you're just an eBird lister naturally. And so when we talk about making checklists in eBird for the breeding bird atlas, we have to recognize the fact that there are many birds here that are just here for the winter. And the bald eagle is a classic example. they don't come into what we call safe dates until April 15th, which means there are other eagles in the area that are here not to breed. And if we wait till April 15th, it is assumed any eagle we see on the 15th or later is here to breed. It has no reason to be here. All the migrants are out of here. So we use safe dates to guide us in how we make our checklists. And, this isn't a program specifically about the Breeding Bird Atlas, because then we go a little more detail about eBird and that sort of thing, because it can be confusing if you've never used it. So don't expect you to totally understand this if you've never used eBird. The great horned owl comes into safe dates on December 15th. So that was like the first bird that really came into safe dates. And somebody was asking me earlier, why on earth is a great horned owl sitting on a nest right now in this cold weather incubating eggs? And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. And the barred owl came into its safe dates on January 15th. So basically this is saying if you hear or see a great horned owl or a barred owl, they should be submitted in an eBird checklist with a breeding code. And we're going to look at breeding codes in a slide or two. And so breeding status. What we look at, there are 4 different types of status. If you remember back when we were looking at those breeding bird maps of the bald eagle showing all 3 different atlases, etc., all those little O's were observation, meaning somebody just saw a bird. Now we have what's called a possible breeder, is a bird that you might just see in its habitat. You see a bald eagle sitting in a tree next to Tridelphia reservoir. That is their habitat that makes them a possible breeder. A probable breeder is you find a pair of, in this case, like look at my picture, these are both black vultures, and they nested in the attic of an old abandoned house. And I watched them the first year. I mean, I go to the block I'm assigned once a week. I knew they were there. I knew they were nesting in there, but I had to see a baby bird to confirm it. But at this point, I just have the pair sitting side by side in their habitat. That makes them a probable breeder, which is the next best thing to being confirmed. So this past summer, in the second year of the Atlas, I hit it on the right day when the baby vulture was sitting out in the window, and I got a picture of it and I was able to confirm them. But it was so frustrating the first year to not be able to confirm that. What are the chances I would drive by when the baby was just coming out? So these are the different status codes that we give to birds, basically, in the Breeding Bird Atlas. And we strive for confirmation so that we can have those black boxes on our maps to show that the breeding bird was confirmed. And we're going to look at the different ways you can confirm birds too. So these are what we call the breeding codes that we use in eBird. And I mentioned appropriate habitat, like an eagle sitting in a tree next to the reservoir. That eagle, by the way, is up in Alaska sitting on a ship, whatever you call it, a post coming out of a ship. A singing male, you may have a robin that sits up in your tree every day singing, and that becomes a singing male, and that's a possible breeder. But then you go a little farther down, when you see visiting a probable nest site down toward the bottom of the list, think of woodpeckers going in and out of a hole in a tree. That's where they nest, and they're checking it out. That makes them a probable breeder. The woodpeckers, until you actually see them carrying food in the nest, or you actually see baby heads popping out of the hole, that's when you confirm woodpeckers. Agitated behavior. Last year, I was down in Antietam Creek, and I had a pair of Louisiana water thrush, which are small birds. The male was on a big rock in the creek singing his heart out, and I saw the female flying into the bank, which, I'm on the land, so I can't see under the bank where all the roots are hanging over the banks of the stream. I suspected she was feeding young, but like I said, I couldn't see. Then the male left the stream and came over toward me, and then she followed him, and the two of them were going around me in a circle, just scolding me and squawking at me. And I was like, whoa, they are agitated. That's agitated behavior. So codes like these can be learned easy enough just with practice. And at the end, I'd like to throw out a field class for people. We'll get there at the end. So then we get to the fun ones, the confirmation codes. That's a bald eagle at Blackwater Wildlife Refuge. So carrying nest material, we're going to look at pictures of all of these, except for nest building. You know, you see a robin come into the tree in your yard with more grass and it's putting it in the nest. That's nest building. Distraction display. If you've ever heard of the bird called a killdeer, very classic bird for doing the, they act like they have a broken wing and they walk along the ground, squawking, trying to draw you away from their nest or their young. That's called a distraction display. And believe it or not, there's about 80 birds that do distraction displays. I learned that the first year of the Atlas. I found that a fascinating piece of information. Occupied nest is the bird sitting on a nest. Recently fledged young, think of a couple baby robins following the adult in your backyard. The adult is picking out worms and then turns around and feeds the baby. That's called recently fledged young. Carrying food, think again of a robin with a mouthful of worms and it flies away. Why is it flying away with a mouthful of worms? It's feeding babies. That's a confirmation. So let's go on to the next. Now, back to the eagles again. What are we looking for to confirm breeding? Well, right there is an eagle carrying a stick. And this is what you might see right now outside. Eagles, most of you probably know, they use the same nest year after year. And so every year the nest gets bigger and bigger because they just keep adding sticks to it. And if you are seeing a bald eagle, for instance, fly over your property with a stick, the next question I'm going to ask is, what direction was it going? Like in Howard County, if somebody said, yeah, I was at a traffic light and a bald eagle flew over Route 175, my first question would be, was it flying north of 175 up towards Centennial Lake, or was it flying south of 175 down toward Lake Elkhorn? You know, so that we would know where to look for that nest that's being built. So that's always important as well to know, where's the bird going? Now, carrying fish, you got to think, it's a little tricky coding birds carrying fish when you're an eagle, because a bird, you know, an eagle dives into the water, catches a fish, it obviously can't eat it there. So sometimes they'll fly into a tree up alongside the edge of the water and eat it there. But if you're seeing an eagle continually, you know, catch a fish and go in the same direction, there's a good chance that they're taking that to a nest. And I last year watched I have a nest up on a cell tower, and we're going to talk about cell towers up in Howard County, an eagle nest. And one day I sat out there for about 20 minutes till I saw the bird come with a fish, and I wanted to know where was it fishing. And it clearly came from the direction of Rocky Gorge Reservoir. And I feel that in every time I saw them, plus the family that adopted the nest, that they were basically getting their fish for their young from Rocky Gorge. So again, I'll remind you the breeding safe dates are April 15th. And let me play you the call. A lot of times, you know, you're out there in your garden, you know, you're focused downward, you know, poking in the dirt, pulling weeds, you know, etc. But your ears are still in tune. And let's listen to a bald eagle, what it sounds like here, because the links don't work, as I said earlier in the PowerPoint. So let's see if you all can hear this. Did everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, excellent. So I know a lot of times, it's not that I walk around with my head up in the air like this all the time. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. And I hear it first. And the next, you will notice I love to tell stories. This is a great story here. I'm sorry, it's that one. Okay, one more slide before the good story. Carrying nest material again. This is in the middle of the summer. That is like a massive pile of roots. And it's like, what is that bird? You know, it's already got its young in the nest, but probably what that bird was doing, the nest was probably getting a bit untidy. You know, they keep bringing fish up there and it probably gets a little smelly maybe. I think it was bringing in some fresh lining material to put in the nest to freshen it up a little bit. That was Jim Wilkinson, yeah, on my Team Howard, as I call everybody. Pretty cool photo. I wish I had gotten that. And so now, love is in the air. How fitting on with Valentine's Day tomorrow. I can say the pair of eagles at the cell tower in Laurel was last year on Valentine's Day that I witnessed the pair copulating on the tower next to their nest, because there's several towers there. And so this is their time for laying eggs right now. And anyone who's ever witnessed their courtship display, though, oh my gosh, I've only been blessed once in my life. This was December 12th of 2019. I was working at the time, and I was at a deer hunt. And I was on the cell phone, I think with my brother, if I remember, and I remember that I heard an eagle. So I just kind of glanced up, and then before I knew it, I saw the second eagle. And let's see if I can do this in the screen. You know, it's like each hand is an eagle. They do a circular motion, kind of slowly. They're, you know, side by side. And then the male is going up. And then before you know it, they're like right over and under each other. The male dives down while the female turns upside down, and they lock talons in the air. That picture. It's not a National Geographic cover photo, but that was the picture I caught of them with their locked talons. And from that point, they tumble on down toward the ground. And when they get toward the ground, they separate and go in different directions. Very occasionally, they do hit the ground because their talons are truly locked and they don't get them unlocked in time. But that is just the coolest thing to witness. I was so excited. Can you tell? I'm still excited. And the atlas had not started. It started January 1st of 2020. This, remember, was December 12th of 2019. So I had already had Team Howard already started, and I went home, emailed everybody. Oh my gosh, everybody. A pair did the courtship display right in front of me at West Friendship Park. They're building a nest. That's as good as like an engagement. That pair is committed. They are going to have a nest. So everybody started paying attention around there. I started getting reports. Yes, Sue, there's a pair of eagles sitting in the tree at the fairgrounds across the street. And I'm like, I want them nesting in the park so I can put an eagle cam on the nest for the students, you know? And then ultimately someone saw the bird carry a stick on the north side of Route 70 right by the fairgrounds. And they ended up nesting on private property, Ryan Landscaping. And somebody knew the owner of the property and mentioned to him, hey, did you know you had a bald eagle nesting on your property? They had no idea. So pretty cool. That's what we're looking for. I think we're a little past the courtship display right now. Probably December, January would be a better time for that. But now these birds are getting ready to lay eggs. So these are the kind of things we're looking for. When we talk about, confirming breeding birds, or the fact, like I say, this is a commitment of these two birds. They are building nests. They're not doing this tumbling act and then flying to New York State. Not at all. These birds are building a nest where they are having their courtship. Then it becomes, where's the nest? That's the challenge. It's kind of fun chasing birds, if you want to call it that. So where do we find nests? This is where we talk about cell towers. Oh my gosh. So on the right, obviously, is the cell tower. This is the Laurel pair on I-95 North, the traffic buzzing below them. Who would think that is where they would build a nest? But this pair built their first nest there in 2020. They nested again in 2021. And then this tower is owned by BGE. And understand that these towers are not put up for birds to build nests. It's a problem. This is we're talking about the power grid here. These birds, they sit there and they have excrement falling all over the wires and they cause corrosion on the wires. You have a power outage. What if a tornado comes through and you need workers up there? And you've got baby eagles in the nest. Those adults are going to attack the workers, but they are still protected by law. So BGE did legally get a permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to remove the nest, but they were only allowed to remove it in the non-nesting season. and they removed it in November. And then they put a bunch of colorful flapping flags up there and crisscrossed wires across the top to discourage them from nesting there. But I went back last week and there was a nest on top of the tower again. So I'm thinking that didn't work, unfortunately for BGE. Here in Howard County, again with Osprey, another large raptor that likes to fish, is just on the other side of 95 on the southbound side, there's another tower and it has an Osprey nest on it. We have 4 Osprey nests in Howard County. Every single one of them is on a cell tower. So this is a problem, and it's a growing problem, and utilities are looking at how to deal with this. But on the left side, if you look closely, there is an eagle in that nest. Probably you can see the yellow bill sticking out right in the center of the nest. This one was the C&O Canal along the Point of Rocks section. I found it last year, was kind of surprised. And when I saw the nest in, I want to say December, the nest was in the tree and I saw an eagle sitting on a branch next to it. And I was like, holy moly, I'll bet it's going to nest there again. Obviously it did already. So I went back in February and sure enough, there's an eagle sitting on the nest. So that was a new confirmation for the breeding bird atlas. So I think that was it about, yeah. Okay, so are there any questions about bald eagles at this time? We could take a break for questions. Oh my gosh, I see the chat has 21 comments.
There's a lot of comments, right?
Okay.
One question from Nina is, are the robins already here and how are they surviving in the freezing weather?
Robins are here and robins do winter here. How are they surviving? If you've been a kind soul who plants native like dogwood trees that have berries, I have a picture actually a little farther down in the program. You know, they can eat a lot of native berries that are still out there, like pokeweed berries, American pokeweed. You know, when the ground is frozen, it is hard for them to get worms, which is their favorite thing to eat. So then they have to depend on berries, I think, I would say. But there certainly are some migrants here. Again, for American robins, we do have safe dates. Just because you have a robin in your yard on March 10th, that doesn't mean it's here to breed. It might be a migrant and then head on out of here because their breeding dates are much later in the season. Yep.
So another question, are there any eagles in the nest cam at the National Arboretum this year?
Sorry, I have no idea. I don't follow that. Sorry.
And then we got the website for the National Arboretum, but somebody wanted the nest monitoring website for the eagles. You had it on a slide.
Yes.
Would you be able to put that slide back up?
What I will do is I can make a PDF of the entire presentation, Ellen, that you could send to everybody.
Okay.
And it will have all the websites and links that you need.
Okay.
I think that would be the easiest thing.
Okay.
And I will warn you, because the last group I talked to asked me to do that and thought, yeah, that's a great way. You know, a lot of speakers, they put notes under all their slides about what everything is. I don't. I'm a person who just like speaks from the heart and loves to tell stories about experiences and things like that. So it's not like I have notes with it, but it will at least have all the links in it to the websites for you.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you. I think that's all the questions.
Other questions? Okay, good. Let me check my time, how I'm doing. It is 3 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, I should be done hopefully by 3:30. So the next slide, let's move on to great horned owls. These birds are nesting now on their eggs. So why do great horned owls nest so early in the year? Well, number one, a great horned owl does not build a nest. They take another bird's nest, a used nest, and they particularly like red-tailed hawk nests. So if you actually are sitting there thinking, wow, I had a red-tailed hawk nest in my yard last summer. Well, get some binoculars out and look at that nest. You might find you have a couple of ears sticking up, and I'll show you is it the next slide? Right there. This is our newest picture, our newest nest in Howard County as of 2 days ago. Mandy Elder had alerted me to the fact that she saw an eagle, an owl at this particular location. And then a few days later, she heard a pair duetting, calling back and forth. So I'm like, yeah, I know that area. There's got to be a nest in those pine trees. And we went out on Friday, and there's the nest. So she is actually sitting on her eggs. It almost, to me, looks like cat ears sticking up, but that is a great horned owl. And they will be incubating through the month. You know, by March, they should all probably be hatched, I would think. So back up to this other picture here. This is a hardwood tree, and places to look in the hardwood trees are really in the crotch of the tree. The main, you can see the massive size of the trunk there. I believe it's a tulip tree with two sides going up, you know, two main trunks. And the hawk built the nest, you know, right in the middle. Great support. I mean, you got to remember, a great horned owl is for a bird, it's a heavy bird, as is a hawk. You know, they weigh a whole lot more than a robin, for instance, and they need some support. If they're going to have 2 or 3 babies in the nest, plus the adult or both adults, they need to have some strong support to hold that nest up. In other words, you're not going to find them up in the twiggy part of a tree, you know, where you can see the branches flying all over the place, because their nest is just going to fall out of the tree probably if they put some babies in it. So right now what you're looking for is old hawk nests. And how do you find a great horned owl? Actually, that's my next slide. Yeah, how do you find a great horned owl? Well, of course, you look and listen. It's kind of the same thing. And so imagine this. I'm going to play you the great horned owl call here. This one is not a projecting call like a barred owl is. We're going to play that one in a bit too. But the great horned owl, listen carefully. Do y'all hear that? Yep. So if you're sitting there saying, yeah, I hear that outside my house all the time. I didn't know what it was, or, you know, I knew it was a bird, but I didn't think it mattered. Who cares? If you're hearing great horned owls in your neighborhood or your yard, I would like to know about it. Because they have no reason to be here but to breed. And you may live in a block where they are not confirmed yet. And that would be a huge contribution to bird conservation if you can help document the breeding owls. And then, so I mentioned the red-tailed hawk nest, and become familiar with the call. So we just heard the call. And oh yeah, so a lot of you are on like Facebook, other social media things, iNaturalist, some of you use, and you see people post photos. You have to, number one, when you note friends or family posting photos, you know, ask them, where is that? Is that your yard? And hey, could we get, you know, somebody from the bird club come out and document your owls and that sort of thing? Because again, we don't have access to private property. And I think to get accurate breeding maps made, you know, having access to private property to document birds is critical. And as I say, owls are a kind of a charismatic species like eagles. Everybody knows them. They may not know what kind of owl, but just having an owl on your property is cool. And when I say take care about posting locations, this is a good, almost like a warning. Everybody wants to get National Geographic cover photos of baby owls in a nest, right? And there are some photographers, and I don't mean by any means majority, I'm just saying some, who may not have the same ethics as other people would about leaving the birds alone to raise their family. And here's an example. Back when I was working, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we have a famous pair of barred owls in Dorsey Hall in Columbia. One of my volunteers called me up and said, hey, Sue, you know the barred owls out there, Dorsey? Yeah. Well, I'm standing on the bridge, and you're not going to believe this, but there's a man standing at the base of the tree, and he's got this gigantic camera, and he is literally slapping the side of the tree. The owl was sitting in the hole, as it often did in the afternoon in the sun, trying to make it fly to get a flight shot. That's not acceptable behavior. So we try to be careful in revealing locations of owls. For that very reason, we don't want them harassed by anybody that would not be kind to them. Does that all make sense? Plus, if it's on your private property, you don't want strangers coming to try and see your owls. So that's a little more than this program's going to discuss, but that's something you can talk to me about off screen, about how to document an owl without the rest of the world knowing. That's an important thing. So we looked at that one already, and that one's in a pine tree. I guess you figured that out. So now let's look at the barred owls. They also came into safe dates. The barred owl was the one with the big round head, no ear tufts like the great horned. It's a good size owl. And let's listen to that call too. They're much more projecting. Okay. And these ones, this one actually I took in New York back in December when I took my mom to the dentist. There's a park across the street, so I went down the boardwalk and thought, yeah, look at this nice wet area, lots of vernal pools. Those are those temporary bodies of water in the woods. And I thought, yep, this is where a barred owl would be. And I'm looking at all the trees, and I thought, that hemlock over there, that's the biggest tree, provides the most, cover from the wind, the sun. And I just grabbed my binoculars and I looked up the trunk of the tree, and there it was. That's kind of lucky. The first tree I looked at, there's the owl. But many of you probably hear them without seeing them. But again, knowing where they are at this time of year, a barred owl has no reason to be hooting except that it's there to breed. It's hooting to talk to its mate, or it's hooting to advertise its territory to other males. So again, letting me know, well, yeah, I got them in my backyard or in my neighborhood at the end of the street. Those kind of observations can be very, very helpful. So let's see, where to get information. I just kind of jotted these things down real quick. The Howard County Bird Club website was where I had mentioned or showed you where all the maps were, showing the differences and how they changed over the different atlases. And there's a whole bunch of natural history information on there, not just birds. The Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, that was the Eagle Nest Monitoring Program. And then the Maryland Biodiversity Project is another wonderful project where you document anything, not just birds, but plants. And you use an iNaturalist app. That would be a great future program, actually. And the Maryland DC Breeding Bird Atlas 3, the 3 is because this is our third atlas. That is found through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, okay, if you want to put eBird on your smartphone. And then Safe Skies, we're going to talk about that in a minute. And there's me, and Dave Zilkowski, by the way, is the co-coordinator for Howard County. He works with USGS on the North American Breeding Bird Survey. And talk about a man who knows anything and everything you could possibly know about birds. We are very lucky to have him. And our email is howard@mdbirds.org. That's how you can reach me. So I did a future program list. I thought you might enjoy some ideas. I just mentioned the Maryland Biodiversity Project and iNaturalist. Hummers and hawks in the summertime. Hummingbirds are another bird that's very difficult to document. Remember, they're so tiny, their nests are tiny. But if you have any of those, what do you call them, nest material cages, where the hummingbird lands on it and grabs the nest material, that's all that's needed to confirm a hummingbird nesting in your block that you live in, if you have those in your yard. Backyard birds in the Breeding Bird Atlas could be a program focusing just on, mockingbirds, robins, catbirds, sparrows, your nest box birds, etc. And then gardening with cavity nesting birds. Somebody was asking about Screech Owl boxes. This could be talking about all your 6 birds that nest in Bluebirds boxes, your owl boxes. Even if you wanted to go the extra money, chimney swift towers for colonies of chimney swifts. I could go on. And Safe Skies, if any of you, and I'm sure many of you have had birds hit your windows and unfortunately died. There are things you can do with your windows to help prevent that problem. And that could be a program all in itself as well. So were there any questions on owls?
So there is a couple. Is there a time of day that the owls call to?
Yes, certainly all hours of the night are possible, but dawn and dusk. So dusk is around the time they're waking up, and it's very typical. Like if, let's say, sunset is 5:30. I'm not sure what it is tonight, but that whole hour, like a half hour before and a half hour after, that's a great time to be listening for owls. Yes. And same thing with sunrise. They tend to hoot a bit before they settle down for the day. But you can certainly hear them in the nighttime, in the middle of the night. And the other thing to listen for later in the season, when the babies get bigger, you know, like in a couple months when the great horned owls are, you know, not white fluffy feathers anymore, they're starting to look like owls, the babies start begging and they make a different sound, which can also be found. I like the Audubon website, their field guide for sounds. They will put the male sound, the female sound, the duetting sound, they'll put the call of the babies. That's a good way to get familiar with the different calls of owls. So yes, dawn and dusk are good times.
Okay, next question. Do you still have a blog yourself, and how could people access it?
I had a blog when I retired to keep in touch with everybody, but then a couple people started getting like weird emails that were sent from me and I didn't send them, so I stopped it. Now what I do at that howard@mdbirds.org, I have an email list, and I usually send out a weekly bird of the week. I just sent out the common raven a day or two ago. That is the best way. If you want to just be getting information about the breeding bird atlas, I don't bombard you with 10 emails a day. I try to keep it to 1, maybe 2 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the kind of person who writes a page. I have so much time, and I know everybody has so much patience about how much you're going to sit there and actually read. You know what I mean? So, and if you don't like my emails, hey, Sue, take me off your email list. I'm not offended. We're all different, So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. And then somebody asked if you could play the owl's song again, the owl's breeding,
Sure.
or the owl's song.
Okay, so let's listen to the great horned owl first. This is the one that has a lower, it's not as loud. Okay, and the barred owl projects louder. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
That was an easy one.
Here's one more. Where are the barred owls and the great horned owls usually found after their safe dates?
I don't think they go too far away from their territory, their home area. I'm thinking they probably stay in that general area year round. They may not be as vocal, like in the fall when their young have been raised and leave the nest. They don't start hooting it up, as we say, until later in the season, maybe November, December, when they're starting to, think about breeding again. That's when they start getting more vocal. Yeah, I don't think they really move away.
All right, one more question. This isn't about eagles or owls, but would you tell our participant when red-shouldered hawks likely lay their eggs, because she thinks there may be a nesting pair near her house, near where she lives?
Okay, so red-shouldered hawks, I'm going to say I have seen them building nests in late February. And if you see a bird building a nest or adding sticks to an old nest, that is a confirmation, even though their safe dates are later down the road, a month down the road, because we still do have some migrants here that will leave. But if they are building a nest, they're not practicing building a nest and then going up to New York or Michigan or wherever. If you think you have a nest or the birds are coming back to an old nest that they've nested in before, as I saw just 2 weeks ago, I was at the eagle nest at the cell tower in Laurel, And I also had a red-tailed hawk nest there that nested 2 years in a row in the same nest. And I was going to check it out for an owl. And while I was there, the red-tailed hawk just came right in and landed right on the nest. Said, well, guess the owls aren't going to be there this year yet, going for 3 years now for the red-tailed hawks on that nest. So does that answer, I hope, the question?
Okay. The next question is, how long does it take for eagles and the 2 owls you talked about to fledge their young?
I would probably, to be absolutely positive, want to specifically look that up, but I'm going to guess an average 6 weeks. Sounds kind of good. Eagles are kind of big birds. 6 weeks, maybe another week or 2. But yeah, that for a concrete answer, I would want to look that up and check.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's it right now for this section.
So instead of the top 10 ways, I like to be different. I did top 8 ways, and I have slides to discuss all of these except for the plastic trash and your rehabilitators. So let's go to the bottom of the list. Know your wildlife rehabilitators. Now, I imagine we have some people here from different counties. First of all, you can call your local animal control agency. Every county should have one, to ask them who are the wildlife rehabilitators in your county. Here in Howard, we have Friskie's Wildlife Sanctuary, which is up in Woodbine, and we have All Creatures Great and Small in Columbia. And then in Montgomery County, there's the Owl Moon Raptor Center. And in, I want to say it's Harford County is Phoenix. I think they call themselves Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. I should have probably looked up the whole name, but it goes by Phoenix. Because, you know, you get a bird that hits the window and it's not dead, but it isn't flying away. You should get it to a rehabilitator, or it gets hit by a car, or heaven forbid, your cat. And we're going to talk about cats. You see, keep cat indoors on the list. You know, you should know where your rehabilitators are and how to safely transport a bird for their safety as well as yours. And then the plastic. You know, we've all seen the pictures of, you know, birds with plastic rings around their neck. Last year, somebody sent me a fox with a plastic, looked like a yogurt container around its neck. You know, it seemed to be doing all right, but the poor thing. You know, and the birds, their feet get like gardeners. I'm sure many of you use, you know, that kind of plastic netting to keep rabbits out of your flower beds or stop them from eating your vegetable, you know, green beans when they're coming up, etc. Birds can get their feet tangled into that, as well as snakes weaving in and out of the squares. I have a little snake to go kit. I get a couple calls every year. Sue, there's a snake in my garden netting. Oh, I'll be right over, you know, and I grab my little kit and out the door I go to save the snake. My advice, if you're using the garden netting, and I understand it, certainly I would prefer people not use it, can be very detrimental to wildlife, but is that you know, every morning you go out and you look at it. Is anything caught in your netting? There's nothing worse than leaving something out there for 3 days in 100-degree heat, not knowing it was there, because if you do find out it's there, well, you can always email Sue, that crazy little redhead from upstate New York. You know, and if she's free, she'll come get your snake out, or call your local rehabilitators. Some of them have volunteers that will come and get, you know, help you out with things like that. But, you know, a lot of animals die in that plastic netting, unfortunately. And then, of course, with the trash, you know, in your neighborhood, I live in a townhouse community. I'm amazed every week, the people that think it's okay to just leave trash thrown in front of their house. You know, the garbage trucks come by. I get it. You lift up the thing, you dump it in, and a couple pieces fly out. They're busy people. They work hard, and, you know, they don't have time to pick up every single piece of trash. In other words, the plastic gets into our waterways, goes down your storm drain. We all know the story of turtles, sea turtles, and mammals eating plastic. And the balloons and the ribbons. People, please pick this stuff up. Don't turn your head and look the other way. So anyway, let's go into some of these other cool things I have pictures of. Oh, by the way, that is a prothonotary warbler. And that is another cavity nesting bird, believe it or not. And notice that green flattened caterpillar in its bill. Caterpillars are the #1 baby bird food. Although I think last year they probably had some competition with the cicadas. They were pretty popular. Working on the atlas, it was really easy to watch birds picking up the cicadas and flying off with them to, take to their nest. That was very helpful last year. I'm gonna miss the cicadas. I don't know how y'all feel, but so yeah, that's a prothonotary warbler. Beautiful little bird. So let's talk about pesticides. I like to tell stories. This one it's to me still traumatic. Let's talk about that little red-haired Susie Q up in upstate New York again. Grew up in Eagle Mills, New York. My mom's yard, and dad, but mom was the mastermind, was like you could put it on the cover of Better Homes and Garden. It was just beautiful. And the Japanese beetles, we'll just take them as an example. A non-native invasive species that eats, if you have rose bushes or your green bean, I have problems with them on my green beans. And so there was the summer, mom or dad, I don't know which one of them, got Ortho 7, a pesticide to kill the Japanese beetles. And that was, I don't know if you can still buy Ortho 7. I have no idea, but this traumatized me. My dad sprayed every bush he could reach in the entire yard for Japanese beetles. And little Susie started noticing dead birds. They would go into the big weeping willow in the front yard. That seemed to be where they all would go and drop dead underneath the tree. And I started to collect the birds and wrap them into aluminum foil. I put them in the freezer. And in the summer, later, a couple weeks later, after the birds stopped dying, I said, Mom, I want to know what killed the birds. Why were the birds dying? Can't we take them somewhere? And Mom drove me to Albany, to the Department of Environmental Conservation on Wolf Road, where she actually lives now. We're just down the road from there. And we walked in, and a man came out the door and took us into a lab. That man took one of my birds, and he put it on the table, unwrapped it, grabbed a scalpel, cut the bird open, and it was full of Japanese beetles. He looked at my mother and said, have you been spraying any pesticides to kill Japanese beetles? My mother didn't get a word in edgewise. I kid you not, I just started screaming, my mom is killing the birds, and ran down. I remember that to this day, running out the door, screaming, crying, my mother was killing the birds. And I'll tell you, that was the last time my parents ever used Ortho 7 in the yard. And little Susie, picture this as a, a spaghetti jar. She used to fill it up with water, a couple drops of dish soap, make some suds, and she would take the lid and go out to all my mother's beautiful bushes every day, and she would go out and collect the Japanese beetles and drown them. I understand in a world with billions of people in agriculture, we have to use pesticides. It's unrealistic that, you can raise acres and acres of cabbage or broccoli and not expect to have the cabbage white butterflies lay their eggs there, and then you have to kill the caterpillars so the people can eat. But think about your own yard. Is my yard, I'm a townhouse, so I'm only 1/10 of an acre. I definitely can handle all the pests in my yard, and I do. Some of you may live on 5 acres. I'm just asking, think about your choices of pesticides, and is it necessary? Same with the fertilizer. I have a lawn here, my townhouse. My grass is green, just like everybody else's, and I've never put fertilizer on my lawn. I still mow it every week in the summer, maybe every couple weeks in August when it's really dry. But think about the pesticides and the effects. And I could even add that to rodenticides, killing, mice and stuff. Some people put those poison traps, they go in and grab the poison, and then they go away and die somewhere else. Think about the birds that might eat the dying mice. In fact, that, excuse me, that great horned owl nest we just found 2 days ago, it is in a park here in Howard County, and it's right by a maintenance yard. And I plan tomorrow to call up the manager and ask him if, do you all have those rodent traps outside the maintenance buildings? And if you do, might you think about pulling them in for 3 or 4 months while they're feeding their young? They need the mice to feed their young, and we don't want them eating poisoned ones, I don't know if I'll get anywhere with that, but I'm going to try. So probably enough on that. We all have attitudes, I guess, about pesticides. I'm just asking you all to give some thought about pesticides you use. And if you can reduce your use, is better than using what you normally do, or just not at all. You could even do, if you have kids, have a contest. Give them each a jar. Who can go get the most Japanese beetles? And whoever gets the most, you get a bowl of ice cream or something. Or who can get the most cabbage worms out of the broccoli plants or whatever. I'm not just picking on Japanese beetles. I just happened to come across that picture, so it seemed, plus the story of the Japanese beetle. So anyway, moving on. Now we move on to the cats. This is my guy, Scotchy. He's adorable. When I retired, my plan was to get a dog, but this guy was a stray in the neighborhood. And one day after a rainstorm, a big rainstorm, he was soaked to the bone. He looked at me and he cried, and I went in and got him some food, and he followed me home. Imagine that. And he never left. And 2 days later, after I bought him flea and tick medicine, and he stayed in my backyard amazingly for 2 days, I brought him in, and now he's my cat, and I'm surprised he hasn't jumped up here on the table by now. But cats kill a lot of birds and chipmunks, squirrels, rodents. And, if you've heard some of the studies that have come out in the last couple of years that, we've lost 3 billion birds on this planet in 50 years. It's a lot of birds. Windows, pesticides, habitat loss, and cats are the main reasons we're losing so many birds. And some of these problems, we have the ability to make a decision to do the right thing. My cat does go outside once a day with me in the backyard to eat grass. I don't take him out of my sight because I have birds that come back there and I don't want him to grab them. But I like him to eat grass. So either stay with your cat if your cat's going to be outside, or think about, please keep your cats inside. The windows. This is the Howard County Recreation and Parks Department main office on Oakland Mills Road. You can see the problem right there. This is mirrored glass. The trees are on the opposite side of the parking lot. And when birds are in those trees and they look across the parking lot and see more trees, they just fly right into the windows thinking it's a tree. And I'm sure many of you are saying, yeah, I've had that happen in my sliding door. I had it happen at my sliding doors. And I went and bought what's called feather friendly, just narrow strips of dots or stripes you can get. And you just put them every 4 inches across your window. Their tape is clear. You hardly notice it. And I haven't had a window strike since. And there's information, I think, is that the next slide? Nope. Okay. Well, at the end, when I have information, there's a website for, actually, I'm sorry, it was a few slides up when I was talking about for further information. There's Safe Skies Maryland. That website has lots of information about things you can do on your windows to help prevent bird strikes. This is a school in Howard County I was surveying last year, and I believe those were clouds in the background, if I remember. But all those little paper butterflies, they break up that reflection. I don't think the teacher probably intended that. It probably has every kid's name on it or something. And those 2 spaces in the center of the window, actually birds would try to fly through that. So you do have to be consistent and treat the whole window, in other words. But again, if it's a small window and you can do it with artwork and you got some kids, grandkids, put them to work drawing little butterflies or birds or ducks or whatever, and put them up on the windows. That will break up that reflection. And so planting native, we're a bunch of gardeners here. This is my dogwood tree in the front yard. I planted probably 25 years ago, and I love, as does my cat, watching from the kitchen window when these berries come in ripe. The thrushes, the robins, and also the mockingbirds and cardinal, lots of birds come to my tree and just gobble up those berries. I just feel wonderful watching them eat the native berries that I planted there. So somebody asked me about screech owls, and two of my Atlas volunteers put up screech owl boxes last fall in their yards, and both of them actually this winter got screech owls roosting in the boxes over the winter. They both sent me these pictures, like, wow, that was quick. And the hope is that maybe they will nest there as well. So it will be, because they're nighttime birds, you know, you can put a camera on it, I suppose, to see if they fly into the box with a mouse or something. But with baby owls, it's just as easy to listen for their sound. They make a begging sound eventually when they're old enough. So creating habitat can be putting up nest boxes. Many of you have bluebird boxes around your gardens. How about a brush pile? You know, brush piles will attract, you know, small mice, small rodents that will feed hawks and owls. You know, it depends on where you live. You know, if you're in a townhouse community with 100 houses, you might not want to attract rodents, you know, but if you live out in the country and you've got 10 acres and back at the end of your lawn, you can put a brush pile, go for it. And so then I was also, you know, ways to help birds is participating in citizen science projects. And of course, the Maryland DC Breeding Bird Atlas, which I've spent some time talking about, is an excellent project. And as I said, that is my hope that you will help by, you know, even if it's just letting me know, yes, so I got owls or I saw an eagle. Maybe you don't want to go through the trouble of creating an eBird account and putting it on your phone. That's not really what I want to do. So, but hey, I want you to document my owls. Let me know, folks. I'm happy to do that. Okay. Maryland Biodiversity Project is another. I'm a contributing editor. I think Ellen mentioned that in the beginning. We've got over 20,000 species documented across the state of Maryland. That's plants, fungi, bacteria, birds, trees, you name it, biodiversity. And the easiest way to contribute to that project is by putting the iNaturalist app on your phone and just going out, taking pictures and click submit. Done. That's simple. And then iNaturalist, they kind of go together. iNaturalist, like I say, it's a powerful identification tool used around the world. And researchers really look at these submitted pictures. If you're like I work on a reptile amphibian survey in Pennsylvania, so I set up iNaturalist to automatically send me every day any reptile or amphibian that is entered from Adams County, Pennsylvania. It automatically comes to my inbox so that I can use that data for my project, the Pennsylvania Amphibian Reptile Survey. So I can't say enough again about citizen science and getting people to participate. And what a cool thing for kids in the summertime. You're looking for projects for them to work on. And then, yes, a field class. I think it would be fun. And I had jotted down the date of your, you had something coming up in April. A garden day or something, selling plants. I wrote it down somewhere. Right here, April 30th. Something like that might be a fun day, like at 8 a.m. I think your program started at 9 a.m. You know, maybe to meet at the museum, I'm thinking, and practice, you know, everybody have eBird on your phones already. Now we could practice conducting a breeding bird survey, how to observe breeding bird behavior. You know, well, there's a bird carrying grass, and look at that one's got earthworms, or that sort of thing. So it's just a thought. If that would interest people, you know, let me know. And then I think this might be the last slide. Again, there's Howard at mdbirds.org. That's me and Dave Zilkowski. But I will point out, because some of you are from different counties, that it really, the email address for, because every county has a coordinator, it's any county at mdbirds.org. In other words, Montgomery County at mdbirds.org. I'm sorry, not county. County doesn't belong in there. I'm sorry, it should just be Howard at mdbirds.org. I'll change that before I make the PDF. I apologize. Frederick at mdbirds.org. Calvert at mdbirds.org. Whatever your county is, just put that in there, at mdbirds.org. I really messed up those addresses. I didn't even put the birds in there. My goodness. I will correct those, I promise. And I think that was my last, yep. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, there's a few more.
Okay.
So, okay, from Judith, when eagles move north, do they raise another family? She says eagles arrive on Iona Island in April.
Yep, and right, so those would be birds that are possibly down here for the winter, because up in, what state was that? I'm sorry.
Iona Island. I'm not
Oh,
sure
okay.
what
So probably that could be off the coast of, I don't know.
Scotland, I think, or something.
Oh, up there. I don't think we have bald eagles out in Scotland. But anyway, if it happens to be, you know, Canada, the United States, sure, all the water up there is frozen in the wintertime. So they come down here and they start heading back up maybe in March, and sure, they appear in April and start their nest building. Yeah, they don't raise a family down here and then go up and raise another one. Mm-mm. The eagles only do one family a year. Some birds, like a bluebird, for instance, will do, it's becoming, I think, more common to have 3 broods a year. You know, back in the 90s when I used to run the Bluebird monitoring program, that was pretty rare to have, you know, they would do at least 2 nests, but every now and then 3. And now that, you know, the seasons are getting longer and warmer and food is available longer, I think it's, you know, pushing them toward being able to successfully have a 3rd brood. But you take a bird like a little chickadee, the Carolina chickadee, they only have 1 nest a year and they're done. Even though they're a little songbird, you would think there's plenty of time to have a 2nd brood, but that particular species does not. So every bird is different as to how many broods they have, but the bald eagle definitely has 1.
Okay.
It's
Here's another.
Iona. It's Iona Island, New York, by the way.
Oh, New
okay.
York.
I'm
Thank
surprised
you.
I have not heard of it. I'm from New York. Okay.
So, somebody asks about buzzards. Can you talk about buzzards? There are a bunch of them near me, and they stink and they're problematic.
Oh. That's almost another talk about, yeah, what to do with problematic birds. I get it. A lot of people don't want them. And, you know, and again, you know, if you were to look at the range maps of vultures from the first atlas, the pilot project in the 70s to now, humans have caused the numbers of vultures, again, to just multiply because we've provided them with a very steady food source with roadkill. You know, you triple the, like in Howard County, you know, the number of roads are tripled, the number of people tripled. You got all these deer that keep getting hit. They have a plentiful food supply, so their babies all survive, and they do wonderfully. And, you know, so there's probably more vultures than there ever have been, and that's not likely to change. And, yeah, you know, if they're like pulling up things on your roof, I've heard stories. That's yeah, maybe email me or something and we could talk on the phone about that. But that's not an easy fix because vultures are protected by law. Yeah. So you can't even, not that I condone just shooting. In fact, you know, speaking of shooting, don't mind my bringing this up. We have an eagle nest, the one by the fairgrounds. And last year, one of my volunteers called me literally from the nest area, the roadside, and said, Sue, I see a bunch of dead and dying birds in the cornfield in front of the eagle nest. I'm like, oh gosh. I said, I hope somebody didn't poison them because the eagles are going to eat them. And I instructed him to call the Department of Natural Resources, and they did send an officer out to confirm that the birds were not poisoned. They had been shot. And so I'm thinking, you know, if you're going to shoot a bird, because the crow, I think, does have an open season, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not positive without checking on that, but I think, you know, if you're going to shoot a bird, would you at least kill it? Not leave it in the field to suffer? That's horrible. You know, same thing with vultures. You know, people want to shoot them. Anyway, let's move on. That's not an easy answer. Sorry.
What do you think about light pollution? Is that does that cause a lot of problems?
It does. And that also, Safe Skies on their website has a lot of information about it. An excellent movie to watch, if you can still find it online somewhere, is called The Messenger. It's a 1.5-hour documentary about the problem of declining birds. And a section of it is the World Trade Center, the 9/11 memorial in New York City. They got these tall beams that shine up into the sky. And when the birds are migrating, especially in migration season, you have thousands and thousands of birds at night migrating, and they get like around New York City and there's this light up in the sky. They get confused and it brings them down into the city, and that's when they start banging into buildings and don't know how to get so and they have they're working with Lights Out New York, or whatever their organization is called. They have volunteers that monitor that memorial. I mean, you can imagine the 9/11 memorial. My gosh, it's such an important place, but at the same time, we don't want it killing birds needlessly. So they do have volunteers that, they start, seeing birds up in the lights. They run around and they shut the lights out until the birds subside and go away, and then they put the lights back on. And I think they've been working with some stadiums in the area to, like purple light or something, maybe is a light color they don't see as well, changing the light color so it's not as attracting to the birds to bring it. I mean, without a doubt, around big cities, the lights, the glow from the cities, it confuses birds. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question, how high do owl nest boxes need to be placed?
That is something I would want to look up, specific measurements. I've not personally put up owl boxes, but that's easily available information. I bet you could probably Google what is the proper height of a screech owl box or a barred owl box, whatever you're putting up. But again, if you want to email me, I can look into that for you. But there are recommended heights for sure.
Okay. And another question is the best email for you. Is that the howard@mdbirds.org?
Yes. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So that's on the screen now.
Yes. And remember, I've got the emails below for Frederick and Montgomery wrong. The word county doesn't belong in there. And I got those addresses completely wrong. So I will correct them for the PDF, as I said. All of the counties are at mdbirds.org, and then you just put your county in front of it if you want to contact your county coordinator that is not Howard. Or email me and I can introduce you electronically to your county coordinator.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. There's a few more comments that people can read, but I think that's all the questions.
Okay. Wow. Fun group.
Thank you.
So do me proud, everybody. Let's start getting some calls, emails, observations about owls and eagles right now. And like I said, maybe if enough interest, we could do a field class to practice how to use eBird. I can enter your owl observations if you get a picture or a recording. Takes me about 5 minutes an observation. It's much easier for me if you do it yourself through eBird, and that's the desired route. But yeah, these observations are important as we document the breeding ranges of these birds and want to see if they've changed at all. Yep. So, okay.
So thank you. Thank you so much. That was a very enlightening topic. Well presented. Thank you.
Yep. And hopefully we'll all meet again. Yeah, thanks for arranging this.
There's lots of ideas for, like you said, future programs, future things to think about.
Yeah. I do best speaking in the winter time, like November, December, January, February. Once March hits spring weather and the breeding birds, I'm out all the time. Yeah. So the winter time is a little downtime for me. That's a better time for me anyway, speaking. like Safe Skies, I know somebody that could talk about the window strike problem, etc.
Oh,
Well, Sue, thank you so much. I don't know if you can see the comments coming in, but they're all very favorable.
Oh, nice. I've not seen any of them, but thank you all for sending nice comments. That's always better than not so nice comments. You know, like I say, I just speak from the heart. I was born this way. Was fat. I didn't even mention this in the beginning. At the age of 7, I received my first Golden Guide to Birds by Chandler Robbins, who I met, and he's in my, well, he passed away at 98, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, but he was in my bird club. Who knew? I had his book up in Eagle Mills, New York at my bird feeder, learning all my birds. If only he knew how much that book meant to me back in those years. You know, and Mom and Dad getting me binoculars and a book at age 7, because obviously I had an interest in birds. And the bird feeder, I used to take my Christmas tree, and Dad would park it in the snowbank after Christmas, you know, because we always had a lot of snow up there. I would melt Crisco shortening and put bird seed in a paper cup, put it in the freezer and unwrap it, and then I would hang the bells from the tree, or sometimes I would just spoon it right out of the pan and put it right on the branches of the Christmas tree, and it would freeze. I had a good time with the birds, you know, and so fitting that my whole life is revolved around birds. And, you know, when your child has an interest in something, you can't go wrong channeling them, you know, in that direction. You don't want them going down the wrong road in life, and you just can't fight your passions or, you know, your interests. And yeah, I made my whole life out of it. And I'm one of those people who is so lucky to go to work every day and love my job. It was very hard to walk away. I retired on Earth Day last year. I don't know if I said that. Picked a special day, I thought, Earth Day. And it was very hard to walk away. But now I'm wrapped up again in the Breeding Bird Atlas, so life is good. So do me proud, people, and document some owls, eagles, and other birds.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I think we're going to end the meeting now. But Sue, this was great. The comments are all favorable. So we will be in touch. If anyone is interested in having the field class, again, you can email the garden club at the garden club at sandyspringmuseum.org. And we'll see how many people are interested in that. And don't forget our program, the next program in April are the Tussie Mussies. And you'll see that'll come on, you can register through the museum calendar. Okay, thank you.
thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much.